Before you scroll, before you skip, before you tell yourself you will watch this later, stop for a second and ask yourself one honest question. What if this is the moment that divides your life into before and after? Not because of motivation, not because of hype, but because something finally clicks. Most people will not finish this video. Not because they are busy, but because staying until the end forces you to confront yourself. It forces you to face the gap between who you say you are and what you actually do. And that is uncomfortable. So if you are still here right now, understand this. You are already different from the majority, because you are willing to pause. You are willing to listen. You are willing to question your own patterns. In the next few minutes, I am not going to give you generic advice. I am going to challenge the excuses you protect. I am going to challenge the delays you justify. I am going to challenge the version of you that keeps choosing comfort over growth. And if you stay until the end, you will not just feel inspired. You will feel exposed. But exposure is where transformation begins. So do not watch this casually. Do not let this play in the background. Lean in. Because what you are about to hear might be uncomfortable. It might challenge your identity, and it might demand action from you immediately. And if you are ready for that, then stay. Because this is not just another video. This is a decision point. Let me go deeper into something most people misunderstand about success. We have been trained to believe that success belongs to the talented, to the naturally gifted, to the lucky, to the people who were born in the right place at the right time. It is a comforting story. Because if success is about talent or luck, then you are not responsible. You can say, and that protects your ego. But the truth is far less comfortable and far more empowering. Success is not primarily about talent. It is about a decision. If you study people who build extraordinary things, you will notice something strange. Many of them were not the most gifted in the room. They were not always the smartest. They were not always the most experienced. What separated them was something far less glamorous. They made a decision that they were going to figure it out. Not try. Not attempt. Not experiment casually. They decided. A decision is different from interest. It is different from motivation. Motivation is emotional. It rises and falls. Interest is passive. You can be interested in becoming great and still do nothing about it. A decision is structural. It reorganizes your behavior. It eliminates alternatives. When you truly decide, you remove the exit door. Most people never do that. They say they want success, but they leave themselves a comfortable way out. They say, I'll start when things calm down, or I'll do it when I feel ready, or I'll commit once I'm confident. They keep one foot in ambition and one foot in safety. And that split creates paralysis. Psychologically, the human brain is wired to avoid uncertainty. It prefers predictable discomfort over unpredictable growth. That is why people stay in situations they hate. That is why they delay starting businesses, writing books, launching channels, applying for opportunities. The brain whispers, at least this is familiar. But here is the problem. Familiarity does not equal fulfillment. If you examine your own life honestly, you will see moments where everything changed because of a single decision. Not a perfect plan, not a surge of inspiration. A decision. You decided to take a risk. You decided to end something. You decided to start something. And once that decision was made, your mind began working differently. You started looking for solutions instead of excuses. You began allocating time differently. You began protecting your energy. Decision reshapes identity. When someone says, I'm trying to get fit, their identity is uncertain. When someone says, I don't miss workouts, that is identity. When someone says, I want to build something meaningful, that is hope. When someone says, I am building something meaningful, that is commitment. The shift is subtle in language, but massive in psychology. The world rewards clarity, it does not reward hesitation. Think about this. There are people right now with fewer resources than you who are moving faster than you. They are not waiting for perfect lighting. They are not waiting for perfect confidence. They are not waiting for universal approval. They decided that action is more important than comfort. And once that decision is made, energy follows. People assume confidence comes before action. It does not. Confidence is a byproduct of keeping promises to yourself. Every time you act despite fear, your brain updates its internal model of who you are. You become someone who moves, someone who executes, someone who adapts. That is why decision is powerful. It is the trigger point for identity transformation. Philosophically, this comes down to responsibility, radical responsibility. If you believe your life is the result of external forces, you will wait for those forces to change. If you believe your life is the result of your decisions, you regain control. Control does not mean certainty, it means ownership. You cannot control the economy. You cannot control algorithms. You cannot control other people's opinions. But you can control whether you move today or not. And that single variable, compounded over time, becomes destiny. The most dangerous illusion is thinking you have time to decide later. Every day you do not decide, you are still deciding. You are deciding to remain where you are. You are deciding to accept the current trajectory. Inaction is not neutral, it is a choice. There is also something else people avoid admitting. Deciding means risking public failure. It means you might look foolish, it means you might try and fall short. And the ego hates that possibility. But what is the alternative? Quiet regret. Regret is slower but heavier. It compounds silently. It shows up years later when you see someone else doing what you once dreamed about, and you realize the only difference was that they committed before they felt ready. Readiness is a myth. Nobody feels fully ready to step into something bigger than their current identity. Growth, by definition, feels unnatural at first. You stretch before you strengthen. So the question becomes simple, but uncomfortable. Are you interested or are you decided? If you are interested, you will consume content. You will watch videos. You will imagine possibilities. You will feel temporary inspiration. Then life will return to normal. If you are decided, you will rearrange your schedule. You will sacrifice distractions. You will tolerate discomfort. You will protect your focus as if it is oxygen. Decision is the dividing line between spectators and builders. And here is the paradox. Once you decide, the path becomes clearer. Not because the world changes, but because your perception changes. When the brain commits to a target, it starts filtering reality differently. Opportunities that once seemed invisible become obvious. Solutions that once seemed impossible become experiments. The mind is a powerful machine, but it needs direction. Decision is direction. So stop asking whether you are talented enough. Stop asking whether you are lucky enough. Stop asking whether the timing is perfect. Ask a harder question. Have you decided? Because if you have not decided, nothing else matters. And if you have decided, most obstacles become engineering problems, not identity crises. This is not about hype. It is about structure. It is about understanding that your future is not built on emotion. It is built on commitment. At some point, you must draw a line internally and say, this is who I am now. This is what I do now. This is the standard I operate at. And then you act accordingly, especially on days you do not feel like it. That is how trajectories shift. So do not leave this as another inspiring idea. Do not let it become intellectual entertainment. Make it practical. Choose one area of your life where you have been hesitating. Remove the exit door. Decide, because the moment you truly decide, you stop negotiating with your potential. And once you stop negotiating, everything changes. Let us confront something that sounds harmless but quietly shapes entire lives. Tomorrow. It is the most socially acceptable excuse in the world. It sounds responsible. It sounds patient. It sounds strategic. When you say, I will start tomorrow, nobody argues with you. Nobody calls you lazy. Nobody challenges your ambition. In fact, people often nod in agreement. That is precisely why it is so dangerous. Tomorrow creates the illusion of progress without requiring action. It allows you to feel aligned with your goals while doing nothing to advance them. Psychologically, this is powerful. Your brain rewards you for intention almost as much as it rewards you for execution. You say you will wake up early tomorrow, and you already feel slightly disciplined. You say you will launch your project next week, and you already feel slightly accomplished. But nothing has moved. This is how dreams decay quietly. Not through dramatic failure, not through public embarrassment, but through endless postponement. Tomorrow is a way of escaping the present moment. The present is uncomfortable. It demands energy. It exposes your limitations. It forces you to confront uncertainty. Tomorrow, on the other hand, is clean. It is untouched. It is hypothetical. In tomorrow, you are more focused, more confident, more prepared. Tomorrow becomes the fantasy version of yourself. The problem is that tomorrow never arrives as tomorrow. It arrives as today. And when it does, it carries the same resistance, the same distractions, the same fears you were trying to avoid. So you postpone again. This cycle is subtle. It does not feel destructive. It feels reasonable. You tell yourself you are waiting for better timing. You tell yourself you need more research. You tell yourself you will begin once conditions improve. But conditions rarely improve before commitment. They improve because of commitment. There is a psychological principle at play here called temporal discounting. Humans tend to value immediate comfort more than long-term reward. The discomfort of starting today feels heavier than the abstract benefit of success months or years from now. Your brain calculates, avoid discomfort now. Future problems can be handled later. Accept later becomes a habit. When you repeatedly delay action, you train your brain to associate ambition with postponement. You build a pattern of hesitation. Over time, that hesitation becomes identity. You start seeing yourself as someone who almost starts, someone who almost commits, someone who almost executes. That is not a motivation problem. That is a pattern problem. And patterns, once repeated long enough, feel permanent. The tragedy is not that people fail. Failure is data. Failure is feedback. The tragedy is that people never give themselves enough attempts to gather meaningful data. They delay so often that they never enter the arena long enough to learn. Imagine if innovation worked the way most people approach their goals. Imagine engineers saying, "We will test the prototype next year." Imagine scientists saying, "We will run the experiment when we feel more confident." Progress would collapse. Execution generates clarity. Delay generates anxiety. When you postpone action, you do not eliminate the pressure. You amplify it. The unfinished task remains in your mind. It consumes cognitive energy. It creates low-grade stress. You think about it at night. You feel guilty during the day. And the longer you wait, the heavier it becomes. So tomorrow does not reduce discomfort. It extends it. There is also an identity cost to delay. Every time you break a promise to yourself, even a small one, your internal trust weakens. You say you will start studying tomorrow. You do not. You say you will start creating tomorrow. You do not. Eventually, your mind stops believing your own commitments. Self-confidence is built on evidence. Evidence that you do what you say you will do. When tomorrow becomes your default response, you erode that evidence. And without self-trust, even great opportunities feel intimidating. Now consider the alternative. Acting today does not require a perfect plan. It requires a first step. The brain resists large, undefined tasks. But it responds to specific, immediate action. Not, "I will build a company tomorrow," but "I will outline the idea for 30 minutes today." Not, "I will transform my life next month," but "I will remove one distraction tonight." Momentum is not mystical. It begins with movement. There is also a philosophical truth here. Time is the only non-renewable resource you possess. Money can be earned again. Reputation can be rebuilt. But time moves in one direction. Every day you postpone meaningful work, you exchange a finite resource for temporary comfort. That trade seems small in isolation. One day does not feel significant. But life is not lived in isolated days. It is lived in accumulated decisions. 10 years of tomorrows become a life that feels smaller than it could have been. And here is the uncomfortable reality. The world is not waiting for you to feel ready. Someone else is acting today. Someone else is learning from mistakes today. Someone else is building resilience today. While you delay, they iterate. While you hesitate, they experiment. Over time, that gap compounds. This is not about comparison for the sake of ego. It is about understanding competitive reality. Progress favors the present tense. You might say, "But what if I fail?" You might. But failure today gives you information. Delay gives you nothing. Failure teaches you where to adjust. Delay teaches you how to avoid, and avoiding becomes addictive. So the question shifts from "when is the right time" to "what can I execute now?" Because the only time you have influence over is this moment. The future is shaped by present decisions, not future intentions. You do not need a dramatic overhaul. You need a bias toward action, a personal rule that says, "If it matters, I move today," even imperfectly, even awkwardly, even briefly. Not the other way around. If you wait to feel motivated, you may wait forever. If you act, motivation often follows. Clarity follows. Confidence follows. But they follow movement. Tomorrow is seductive because it feels safe. But safety without growth becomes stagnation. And stagnation over time feels like regret. So examine your language carefully. Notice how often you use tomorrow as a shield. Notice how often you postpone the very thing you claim matters most. That awareness alone is powerful. Then break the pattern once. Just once. Choose something you have been delaying and act on it before the day ends. Not perfectly, not completely, just decisively. Because the future you imagine is built by the present you execute. And if you truly care about your potential, stop negotiating with tomorrow. Act today. Now we arrive at the part most people avoid, even after they understand decision, and even after they recognize the illusion of tomorrow. Nobody is coming. That statement can sound harsh. It can feel cold. But it is not pessimistic, it is clarifying. From childhood, many of us are conditioned to believe that at some point someone will step in. A teacher will notice, a mentor will appear, an investor will discover us, a friend will push us. A perfect opportunity will arrive at the right time and unlock everything. Sometimes that happens. Most of the time it does not. And when you quietly expect rescue, you unconsciously delay responsibility. You wait to be chosen instead of choosing yourself. You wait to be validated instead of building proof. You wait for permission instead of granting it internally. The psychological shift from dependence to ownership is one of the most powerful transformations a human being can experience. When you accept that nobody is coming to save you, something interesting happens. You stop looking outward for motivation. You stop blaming circumstances with the same intensity. You begin asking a different question. Instead of asking, "Who will help me?" you start asking, "What can I control?" Control is not about dominating the world. It is about identifying your leverage. You cannot control the economy. You cannot control algorithms. You cannot control public opinion. But you can control your effort. You can control your learning rate. You can control your consistency. You can control how you respond to setbacks, and that is enough. Most people overestimate how much external forces determine their trajectory and underestimate how much sustained internal discipline can alter it. Small, repeated actions under your control compound into outcomes that look dramatic from the outside. But here is the part that requires maturity. When you accept that nobody is coming, you also accept that excuses lose power. You cannot blame your family forever. You cannot blame your environment forever. You cannot blame your lack of resources forever. You can acknowledge them. You can understand them, but you cannot build your future on them. There is a philosophical principle here rooted in agency. Agency is the belief that your actions influence outcomes. Without agency, effort feels pointless. With agency, effort feels meaningful. If you believe your life is primarily the result of external forces, you will conserve energy. Why try hard if the system is fixed? Why push if the outcome is predetermined? But if you believe that your decisions, even within constraints, shape your path, you unlock energy. Ownership generates energy. This is why radical responsibility is so powerful. It is uncomfortable because it removes the comfort of blame. But it is empowering because it restores your capacity to act. When something goes wrong, instead of saying, "This always happens to me," you ask, "What can I learn from this?" When progress is slow, instead of saying, "The world is against me," you ask, "What variable can I adjust?" This shift may seem small, but over years it changes everything. The world respects builders, not complainers. And building requires self-leadership. Self-leadership means you do not wait to feel inspired. You create structure. You design routines. You protect your focus. You measure progress. You hold yourself accountable even when nobody is watching. That last part is critical. When nobody is watching, character is built in private. Discipline is proven in silence. It is easy to perform effort publicly. It is harder to sustain it when there is no applause, no immediate reward, no visible recognition. But that is where trajectories are shaped. There is also a deeper truth. When you stop waiting for someone to save you, you become capable of saving others. Strength is transferable. When you build resilience, you become a source of stability for your family. When you build competence, you create opportunities for your team. When you build wealth, you expand possibilities for your community. Dependence limits impact. Ownership multiplies it. Now let us address fear directly. Sometimes we wait for someone to come because we are afraid to move alone. Moving alone means you might fail without support. It means you might stand out. It means you might be misunderstood. But growth has always required a degree of isolation. Not permanent isolation, but temporary separation from the comfort of the crowd. Every meaningful path feels uncertain at first. If you wait for unanimous approval, you will wait forever. Choosing yourself is not arrogance. It is responsibility. It means you decide that your potential matters enough to protect. It means you decide that your future is not an accident. It means you stop outsourcing your standards to people who are not living your life. And here is the paradox. The moment you take full responsibility, you often attract higher quality support. Investors support founders who are already moving. Mentors guide individuals who are already committed. Teams follow leaders who are already disciplined. Support follows momentum, but momentum begins alone. So ask yourself honestly, are you waiting to be discovered? Or are you building something worth discovering? Are you waiting for motivation? Or are you constructing systems that produce results regardless of mood? This is not about becoming emotionally detached. It is about becoming structurally independent. You can appreciate help without depending on it. You can value collaboration without requiring rescue. At the end of the day, your life is your project, not your parents' project, not your friend's project, not society's project, yours. And projects move forward through deliberate action, iteration, and responsibility. You may not control your starting point, but you control your direction. You control your effort. You control whether you remain a spectator or become an architect of your own trajectory. Nobody is coming. Add that as your advantage, because if nobody is coming, then you are free to move without waiting. So stop waiting to be chosen. Choose yourself. Act as if the responsibility is entirely yours, because it is, and build accordingly.